Hey guys, and welcome to Toby Talks Tech. My name is Toby, and today we're going to talk some tech. In this video, I really want to talk about this little guy right here. This is the DJI Osmo Pocket, which is DJI's smallest ever portable gimbal, capable of shooting smooth full 4K at 60 frames per second. As you can see, it's a tiny device. It's a lot smaller than most of the other gimbals that I own, and I have been using it for a few months now. And I really want to talk about what I like, what I don't like about it, and just give you an idea of whether this device might be great for you. Now, this video is broken down into 3 separate sections, and you're going to find timestamps down below, so go and check them out. First, I'm going to talk about the specs. Then we're going to give it a little bit of a field test to see what it can actually do out in the wild. And then at the very end, I'm going to tell you exactly what I like and what I don't like about it. But now, enough talking, let's jump right into the video. First off, as promised, let's look at the specs. The DJI Osmo Pocket was released at the end of last year, and on Amazon you can find it for around about $350. It is a tiny gimbal, and its size is only 12.19 by 3.69 by 2.8 centimeters in size, and it only weighs 116 grams. In comparison, the DJI Osmo is a real beast weighing in almost half a kilo, so it's really tiny in comparison. Now, the DJI Osmo Pocket features a 1/2.3-inch CMOS sensor with a field of view of 80 degrees and a maximum aperture of f2. It is a 12 megapixel sensor, which actually is the same as in your iPhone XS, and it can shoot photos at a resolution of 4000 by 3000, both in JPEG and DNG RAW, and it takes video up to 4K at 60 frames per second, and if you go down to 1080p, it can shoot up to 120 frames per second, which does give you pretty nice slow motion. It has a mechanically stabilized 3-axis gimbal, and on the front you will find a 1.08-inch touchscreen LCD display. The DJI Osmo Pocket has 2 microphones, one at the bottom right next to the charge port, and one right at the front just underneath the display. All of your data will be stored on a micro SD card, and the maximum capacity supported is 256 gigabytes. The battery is rated to last you 140 minutes, and you can charge the device up via USB-C. The DJI Osmo Pocket lets you shoot photos and videos, but you can also shoot panoramic images or motion lapses, which is a time lapse where the camera actually moves. On top of that, you can attach your phone either via a Lightning or a USB-C connector directly to the DJI Osmo Pocket and unlock additional features by using the DJI Mimo App. Some of these features include, besides a larger viewing area, access to some more fine-grained control over exactly how the device will record, as well as things like active track, where you can tap and mark a moving object on the screen, and the Osmo Pocket will automatically try to follow the movement of that object. On top of that, you will also get a really small carrying case just to protect that little device while you stuff it somewhere into your pocket or dump it in a bag. Cool, so that's the official specs for the DJI Osmo Pocket, but let's see what this device does when you actually take it out of the box and actually try to record something. First off, because I imagine that's the main reason why most people would buy the DJI Osmo Pocket or any portable gimbal for that reason, let's check out what the video looks like. In terms of ease of use, it's pretty hard to beat the Osmo Pocket. You literally just pull it out of your pocket, turn it on, takes about 5 seconds, and you're good to go. The video quality at 4K looks nice and crisp, and because you can shoot at 60 frames per second, you can get some buttery smooth slow motion. Stabilization is nice and smooth, though occasionally I got a little bit of a twitch of that gimbal head in there. Also, compared to some of the bigger gimbals like the DJI Osmo, it is not quite as stable. You'll just get a little bit more of that walking up and down movement. Here's a shot where I was holding both the DJI Osmo Pocket and the original DJI Osmo walking down the street. Notice that the shot from the Osmo Pocket has a little bit more of that up and down movement to it, but it's really nothing to complain about. Here again is one shot taken with the DJI Osmo Pocket. And the exact same scene, shot with a bigger gimbal, the DJI Osmo. Back again to the Osmo Pocket, you can see that it can deal pretty nicely with high contrast shots, so every now and then, they benefit from brightening up the shadows or bringing down the highlights just a little bit in post-production. Now, if you are shooting indoors or in a low light situation, you will notice quite a bit of grain and noise going on in the dark areas of the image, just because of the smaller sensor of the DJI Osmo Pocket. Super slow motion at 120 frames per second at 1080p does look nice and smooth, but it is very easy to get flickering from artificial lights and there's a lot of noise and the image just doesn't look quite as nice and crisp as if you're shooting in 4K. I did notice a trend though that whenever I was trying to get a more close-up or a macro shot, and that's both for video and for photo, that they often ended up out of focus because the Osmo Pocket seemed to have a tendency to focus on things that were further away, expecting a wider shot. And because the LCD display on the Osmo Pocket is rather small and there was no clear indicator, I didn't even know that it was not in focus until I looked at the footage afterwards. Due to this tendency, if you are looking to use the Osmo Pocket for foodie videos or vlogging, you do have to be a little bit careful. However, talking about vlogging, the audio quality on the DJI Osmo Pocket is actually pretty good, and here's an example. And this is what the audio sounds like with the DJI Osmo Pocket. I'm out in the city, there's a fair bit of noise around, it's a little bit windy, but I'm actually really impressed with the audio quality, mainly because of the front-facing microphone. So if you're using this for vlogging, you can still hear my voice nice and clear, and it's not the greatest in the world, like you'll do better with the shotgun microphone on, your traditional gimbal or a handheld camera or something like that, but it's actually doing pretty well. But again, as you can clearly see, the Osmo Pocket did not have me in focus, even though I'm literally in the center of the shot. The photos taken with the Osmo Pocket are pretty nice, but this device really shines more when it comes to video. Now, that is not to say that you can't get nice photos using the Osmo Pocket, but I would probably reserve it for where you're trying to go for a landscape or just a wider shot. You can shoot in a raw image format using the Osmo Pocket, and this will unlock a lot of possibilities if you want to post-process your images, but it's not quite the same as shooting on a DSLR or a mirrorless. Active Track is a feature where you can tag and mark an object on your attached phone, and then the gimbal will automatically follow that object's movement. Now, you do need the free DJI Mimo app for that and attach your phone, and it doesn't work in 4K, you do need to shoot in 1080p, and personally I think it just didn't work very well. It kept losing the target, and I think it probably might work if you're really far away and it's a really high contrast target, but trying to track our cats was nearly impossible. However, let's end on a high note and talk about motion lapses, which are time lapses where the gimbal is moving. They are super simple to set up. You just specify the duration and the interval, as well as the start and the end position of the gimbal, and you're good to go. Cool, so now we covered the specs as well as what you can actually do out in the field with the DJI Osmo Pocket. Things I really like about the DJI Osmo Pocket, especially if you compare it to some of the other gimbals that we have, is simply the portability and the ease of use. It literally takes me, it's off, it literally takes me 5 seconds to turn this device on, press record, and there I'm recording, stabilized, and I can see what I'm actually filming. I don't need to set up a camera on top and balance it or anything. It's literally just a pull it out of your pocket, turn it on, record, and the quality of the video is really good. 4K looks nice and crisp. It is nice and smooth, even though not quite as smooth as some of the bigger gimbals, and I think it's because bigger gimbals tend to be heavier, which means they are more stable just by default. This one is quite light, so as you walk, you will get a little bit of that walking movement going on. But if you just swing it around, active track mode, or just move it up and down, the gimbal is super smooth, gives you really nice footage. Plus, because you can record at 60 frames per second at 4K or 120 if you go down to 1080, which for me is actually still plenty, you get super smooth buttery video out of it. So in terms of actually using this device to capture video, this is the device that I usually take with me because it doesn't cost much, it's easy to charge, it's super easy to use, so absolutely love that about the DJI Osmo Pocket. I was also happily surprised that the audio quality is actually pretty good, mainly due to the fact that it does have 2 microphones, though because they're exposed on a flat area, if there's wind, it will pick up quite a bit of wind noise, as you heard in the audio example that I gave a bit earlier. The battery life is pretty good. I do have to admit I get probably about 2 hours and a bit, so 140 minutes advertised battery life seems pretty accurate to me. Now, the only time I have issues with that or don't like it quite as much is when I'm doing a motion lapse and I actually want to take a 2-hour, 3-hour motion lapse. 3 hours I can't, because you can't disable the screen to save battery, although I'm not sure how much that would save anyway. So a 2-hour motion lapse is usually the most you get out of it though. Even that's actually plenty. Now, some of the things I don't love about the DJI Osmo Pocket is that while I love having a screen so you can actually see what you're filming, without attaching a phone, that screen is actually pretty small. So while you can see what's in the frame, for one, it's square. The screen is square, so if you're filming in a wide format, you don't actually get the exact picture of what you're filming, but also because the screen is quite small, especially if you're vlogging, you may not notice that your face isn't actually in focus, or the object that you think you have in focus isn't actually in focus because the screen is too small, you can't tell, but you can always attach your phone if you really need that bigger display. Now, the other thing to consider as well, especially if you're spending a full day out with this device and you use it quite heavily, you can't change the battery, it's charged internally. So after 2 hours, this device will run out unless you constantly keep charging it in your car, or you have a spare battery pack or something, so you can kind of keep charging it. Because it is so nice and light, everything's internal, so there's gonna be some trade-off somewhere. In summary though, I really like the DJI Osmo Pocket, and even at about $350 US, I think it was probably one of the worthier gimbals that we bought. We have some of the expensive ones that we never use because there's too much friction, it's too much effort to bring them along, to set them up, and the DJI Osmo Pocket, it's just so easy, right? You whip it out and you get really nice footage. You compromise a little bit on the quality of the image due to a smaller sensor. It's a bit more noisy, and obviously you get a little bit more movement. You can't exchange the batteries, but it's a great device. I really like using it. So I think, just have a look at some of the sample footage, some of the other reviews that you'll find online to figure out whether this device might be good for you. And that's all there is to it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. And because YouTube is a bit weird, be sure to enable that bell icon so you actually get notified. If you want to support me, what I do on this channel, be sure to check out all of the links down in the video description. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you later.